Sold into a marriage she feared, the cowboy groom whispered, "I'll wait for your heart." Bright lights glinted off metal panels and polished floors, reflecting the anxious faces of those who had come to witness the bidding. Lyra stood at the edge of the platform, her hands clenched tightly at her sides. Her stomach churned, not from hunger or fatigue, but from fear. The hum of the hovering drones recording the event, the murmurs of alien and human spectators alike, and the cold, mechanical voice announcing the proceedings, all of it pressed down on her like a weight she could not lift. She was only 19, yet already she had learned to rely on herself. Ever since her parents had died during a mining accident on their home colony, she had fought for survival in a universe that seemed designed to crush those without protection. She had studied engineering, repaired drones, patched life support systems, and kept herself alive where others had given up. And now, all that experience, all her independence meant nothing, because today she was being sold into a marriage she had never wanted. Lyra's eyes swept over the crowd. Some faces were human, some alien, and some were hybrids, their features strange to her eyes but no less calculating. Every gaze seemed to weigh her like a commodity. She hated herself for the way her heart pounded, the way her palms were slick with sweat. She had spent her life avoiding situations that robbed her of control, and here she was, standing on a raised platform like an object up for sale. Next, the auctioneer's voice rang sharp through the hall, cutting through the murmurs. Lyra's breath caught. Her heart threatened to escape her chest. She looked down at the floor, wishing for something, anything, to protect her. Her mind raced. She had known this could happen. Her family's debts were staggering, and the only way to repay them was to offer her in marriage to someone who could secure their survival. But knowing something could happen and watching it happen were two different things entirely. A figure moved forward, tall and broad-shouldered. Lyra barely recognized him at first. Cade. Her heart skipped a beat, not from fear, but from the strange sense that he was different. He was a cowboy from the outer colonies, known for running a massive orbital ranch. Stories of his exploits traveled across human space, rescuing stranded crews, taming rogue drones, even surviving asteroid storms that had destroyed entire outposts. Yet, despite all his reputation, he moved slowly toward the stage, his expression calm, almost gentle. He met her eyes. Lyra felt a jolt of something she couldn't name, curiosity, confusion, maybe a flicker of hope. He gave her a small, respectful nod as though to say, "I am not here to hurt you." It was strange to feel relief in such a place, but it was real. The auctioneer's voice rang again. Starting bid, 20,000 credits. Bidders murmured and waved their paddles. Lyra's stomach sank with each increment. This was not just about wealth, it was about control. Whoever won the bid would claim her life, decide her future. She hated the helplessness in her chest. Cade raised his paddle. Lyra blinked in surprise. No rush, no show of force, just a quiet declaration that he was willing to do whatever was necessary. The auctioneer smirked. 50,000 credits. Do I hear 60? Lyra's pulse raced. She felt a strange warmth at the back of her mind, like a shield against the fear. Cade's presence was different. He didn't leer at her, didn't make crude comments, didn't treat her like property. Instead, he looked at her like a person, like someone whose opinion mattered, even if she didn't realize it yet. By the end of the bidding, it was clear. Cade had won. Lyra's stomach sank, but she surprised herself by staying upright, by keeping her chin high. She didn't know him, didn't trust him, and yet there was a part of her that wondered if this wouldn't be a nightmare. The crowd's cheers and gasps faded into background noise as she followed the attendants toward the transport. Her mind swirled with questions. Who was this man really? Would he treat her like all the others had? Or would he be different? A small voice in her chest whispered that maybe, just maybe, he would be. The journey to Cade's orbital ranch was long and quiet. Lyra watched the stars pass by through the transport window. She had always loved the stars, but now they felt distant, like silent witnesses to her life being decided for her. The ship's artificial gravity hummed softly, a steady reminder of the mechanical precision humans could create to survive where nothing else could. She thought about her life, her struggles, and the skills that had kept her alive. If anything, she realized, humans were remarkable in their ability to endure, to adapt, to survive where alien species might fail. That thought, small and stubborn, gave her a sliver of courage. When the transport docked at Cade's ranch, Lyra stepped out into a world she had never imagined. The ranch was massive, a complex of structures designed for both work and comfort, floating like a jewel among the stars. Drones buzzed quietly, moving supplies and livestock around. Artificial fields glowed softly under energy lights, and the scent of ionized air mixed with faint traces of livestock and machinery. It was alive, buzzing with activity and quiet purpose. Cade met her at the ramp. He didn't smile, not yet, but his eyes were kind. "Lyra," he said softly, "you don't have to do anything right away. You'll have time to get used to everything. I'll wait for your heart." Lyra stiffened. His words were strange, almost impossible to believe in a universe where life often demanded survival over sentiment. She wanted to ask him what he meant, but the words caught in her throat. His presence was commanding yet gentle, like the balance humans had always found between force and empathy. Somehow, she felt she could breathe here, even if only a little. The first days were awkward. Lyra explored the ranch cautiously, observing the humans and drones at work. She noticed small things, how the workers helped each other, how Cade treated even the youngest apprentices with respect, and how they all adapted to challenges no outsider could imagine. Humans had a way of turning hardship into strength, of creating solutions where logic said none could exist. Watching them, Lyra realized that survival was not just about strength or wealth. It was about patience, ingenuity, and heart. Cade gave her tasks that were small at first, checking power conduits, assisting with drone maintenance. But he never criticized her, never treated her like she was less than competent. Slowly, Lyra began to see that perhaps she was not entirely trapped. Perhaps in this vast human network of resilience and courage, there was room to breathe, to learn, to reclaim some control over her life. One evening, as she looked out at the stars from the ranch's observation deck, Cade joined her. The silence between them was comfortable, not forced. "You're afraid," he said simply. Lyra nodded, unable to speak. How could she explain the storm in her heart? How could she admit that the idea of being bound to someone she barely knew filled her with terror, even as a small spark of hope flickered? "I know," he said softly, "but fear doesn't have to control you. I'll wait, for as long as you need." The words settled over her like a shield. For the first time in a long time, Lyra believed that perhaps she could survive this, not just physically, but emotionally. The stars outside seemed brighter, not just distant points of light, but reminders of the vastness of life, of human endurance, of hope. And for the first time in a long time, Lyra allowed herself to imagine a life that wasn't just about survival. A life that maybe could include trust. A life that maybe could include love. The orbital ranch stretched out before Lyra like a city among the stars. Floating modules connected by illuminated walkways formed a network of homes, workshops, and green fields. Livestock adapted to zero gravity grazed in specialized enclosures, their movements oddly graceful as they floated among soft energy grids. She had never seen anything like it. Even after a lifetime of working in colonies and stations, nothing had prepared her for the harmony humans could create between technology, life, and the harsh void beyond. Cade walked beside her, his tall frame moving with ease in low gravity. He carried a small tablet, scanning systems and checking logs, but he spoke to her as though nothing else mattered. "You'll need to know your way around," he said. "Not for control, so you won't feel lost. This place can be confusing at first, but you'll learn quickly." Humans adapt faster than most. Lyra swallowed, feeling a mixture of awe and skepticism. Adapt, she asked. I've survived. I've fixed machines, drones, and life support systems. I adapt every day. Cade gave her a soft smile. Yes, but this is different. It's not just survival. It's about thriving, even when nothing makes sense. Humans can do that. We find ways where others see walls. The first stop was the power grid module. Lyra's eyes widened as she observed the intricate network of conduits, energy nodes, and drone operators. Everything seemed alive, moving in a rhythm she hadn't expected. Cade gestured to a small console. Try recalibrating the drone recharge sequence. Nothing dangerous, just a test. If it works, it'll optimize energy use for the field modules. Lyra hesitated. She wanted to refuse. Part of her still wanted to protect herself by staying invisible. But Cade's calm expectation made her hands move forward without her permission. She adjusted the sequences, watched the indicators flicker, and held her breath. When the energy flows balanced perfectly, Cade nodded. Good, he said simply. You see, humans can create balance in chaos. It's not magic, it's patience, understanding, and courage. Lyra blinked. Courage. She had always believed courage was about fighting, about survival. But here it seemed quiet, steady, even gentle. The next day, Cade introduced her to the crew, engineers, medics, drone specialists, and field workers. They all nodded politely, some curious, some indifferent. No one stared too long or whispered about her presence. Lyra noticed the difference immediately. Human kindness could exist even in the harshest environments. One of the engineers, a young woman named Miri, approached Lyra. Don't worry, she said with a soft grin. Cade treats everyone fairly, you'll see. Lyra nodded, unsure what to say. I just don't want to make mistakes. You won't, Miri said. Humans help each other, that's how we survive. We don't leave anyone behind. The words lingered in Lyra's mind. She had heard the sentiment before, in history lessons and stories of past colonies, but seeing it in action felt different. Humans were resilient not just because of strength or technology, but because of each other. Their unity made them formidable. Over the next few days, Lyra moved cautiously through the ranch, observing, learning, and testing herself. She repaired drone circuits, checked nutrient supplies for the livestock, and learned the rhythm of low-gravity farming. Cade watched silently at first, intervening only when necessary, his patience unwavering. One evening, as artificial lights dimmed to simulate night, Lyra floated to the observation deck. Cade joined her, leaning against the railing. The stars stretched infinitely beyond the protective dome, and the silence was profound. You watch the stars often, he said, almost as if reading her thoughts. I like them, Lyra admitted. They make everything feel smaller, less frightening. Even now, Cade nodded. Humans have always looked to the stars. We are meant to explore, to endure, to find beauty in hardship. Even when life is difficult, even when fear surrounds us, the stars remind us we can rise above it. Lyra felt a lump in her throat. He didn't sound like a teacher or a boss. He sounded like someone who had lived through storms and still believed in hope. The words unsettled her, not because she doubted them, but because they resonated deeply, touching a part of her heart she had kept buried. The following week brought the first real test of her courage. One of the field drones malfunctioned while delivering supplies to the livestock enclosures. The drone's circuits sparked, and alarms echoed through the module. Lyra's training kicked in immediately. She strapped herself into the repair unit and floated toward the malfunctioning drone. Cade followed, not giving orders, just his quiet presence nearby. Watch the main relay, he said softly. I'll handle the backup systems. Lyra worked quickly, tracing the fault lines, repairing damaged circuits, and rerouting power. Sparks flew, the lights flickered, and for a moment she felt fear gripping her chest. But Cade's calm, patient guidance kept her steady. When the drone finally hummed back to life, Lyra exhaled sharply, a laugh of relief escaping her lips. You see, Cade said, floating beside her, Humans can solve problems that seem impossible. We adapt, we endure, and we protect each other. That's our strength. Lyra realized she had never felt a sense of teamwork like this before. Her survival had always been solitary, lonely, and exhausting. But here, humans worked together, shared their skills, and supported each other. Even strangers like Cade, even someone she didn't yet trust. As days passed, Lyra began noticing small things. The way Cade checked on everyone, the careful way he spoke to the younger workers, the quiet patience he showed when machines failed or systems glitched. It wasn't just kindness, it was understanding, respect, and above all, trust in others' abilities. Humans thrived not because they were the strongest, but because they relied on each other without fear or judgment. One afternoon, Cade took her to the livestock module. Floating sheep and cows moved gracefully in zero gravity, their movements synchronized with magnetic fields controlling their environment. Lyra had never imagined such a sight. "You've never seen anything like this," Cade observed. I've seen colonies, stations, farms," Lyra admitted, "but nothing like this. It's alive." "That's the point," Cade said. "Humans create life even in the most hostile places. We don't just survive. We build, we adapt, we care. That's why you're here. You're capable of more than you know." Lyra's heart tightened. His faith in her was almost unbearable, like a light shining in a room she thought was dark forever. She wanted to argue, to reject it, but the truth was undeniable. Humans could endure anything. They could rise above fear, hardship, and uncertainty. And maybe she could, too. That night, Lyra floated back to her quarters, her thoughts spinning. She reflected on her life, her struggles, and the strange hope growing inside her. Humans had a way of finding strength in fear, courage in danger, and hope in despair. And Cade, he was the embodiment of that principle, calm and patient, willing to wait for her heart without pressure, without demands. As she lay in her bed, staring at the faint glow of distant stars through the viewport, she whispered to herself, "Maybe I can learn to trust. Maybe I can survive this and more." The stars outside shimmered like silent witnesses, promising that in the vast, indifferent universe, humans were remarkable. They could adapt, endure, and find courage in the unlikeliest of places. And perhaps in that resilience, there was room for something more. Lyra didn't know what the future held. She didn't know if she would ever love Cade or if she would remain cautious and distant forever. But she knew one thing. In this strange, floating ranch among the stars, humans could thrive. And maybe, just maybe, she could too. And as Cade whispered in her thoughts, not needing her response, "I'll wait for your heart," Lyra allowed herself a small, fragile hope. A hope that humans, with all their courage and patience, could show her a new life, one she had never dared to imagine. The calm rhythm of the orbital ranch was shattered one morning by a sharp, urgent alarm. Lyra's heart skipped a beat as red warning lights pulsed across the observation deck. A rogue mining drone, tasked with hauling supplies to the far edge of the ranch, had gone haywire. It had collided with one of the floating enclosures, and now its cargo, nutrient pods and water containers, was spilling into space. Lyra's stomach tightened. She had repaired drones before, but none with this level of damage, none in zero gravity while the risk of collision and decompression loomed. She looked toward Cade, who stood at the control console, calm as ever. His presence was reassuring, a steady anchor in the chaos. "Lyra," he said, his voice calm but firm, "I need you on the main relay. I'll stabilize the auxiliary systems. We can fix this together." Lyra nodded, swallowing her fear. She floated toward the drone, her gloves gripping the harness rails as she approached. Sparks flew from damaged circuits, and the faint smell of burning wires filled the module. She had never worked on something so critical under such pressure, but Cade's quiet confidence bolstered her resolve. "Watch the power nodes carefully," Cade instructed, floating alongside her. "If you misalign them, it could overload the system." Lyra's hands moved almost automatically, tracing wires, recalibrating the drone's internal circuits. She felt the familiar surge of adrenaline, the focus that came only when survival was at stake. Time seemed to slow. Every movement mattered. Every decision could mean success or disaster. Above them, the drone's cargo tumbled dangerously close to the energy grids. Lyra's heart pounded. She stretched her arm, guiding the containers away with a magnetic tether, holding them steady. A small jolt of panic surged as a container slipped, but Cade was immediately there, his hand steadying the load with a precision that made Lyra realize how much humans had learned to adapt in zero-gravity life. "Keep steady," he said softly. "Breathe. You've got this." Lyra drew in a deep breath, steadying her hands. Slowly, carefully, she rerouted the circuits, reconnected the relay, and secured the cargo. Sparks still flew, but the system began to hum with renewed life. She exhaled sharply, and a laugh of relief escaped her lips. "You did it," Cade said, his calm tone almost a reward in itself. "I knew you could." Lyra felt a warmth in her chest. For the first time, she realized that survival was not only about her own skills, it was about trust, teamwork, and patience. Humans could endure alone, yes, but together they were unstoppable. The aftermath of the incident left the ranch buzzing with activity. Engineers repaired the damaged drone, technicians checked energy flows, and Cade walked among them quietly, ensuring everyone was safe. Lyra watched him, noting the respect he showed for each person, the encouragement in his words, the quiet authority in his presence. He was not a man who demanded loyalty. He earned it through patience and care. Later, in the quiet of the observation deck, Lyra floated beside Cade. The stars outside seemed sharper after the chaos, brighter, almost as if the universe itself had acknowledged the human's triumph. "That was terrifying," Lyra admitted softly. "I've never faced something like that before," Cade nodded. "Fear is natural. Courage is choosing to act despite it. Humans do that every day. We survive because we trust ourselves and each other." Lyra considered his words. She had always survived alone, relying only on her instincts and knowledge. Yet now she understood that trust, patience, and teamwork were just as important as skill. Humans were not only survivors, they were creators of resilience. Over the next few days, Cade encouraged Lyra to take on more responsibilities. She learned to manage drones, oversee energy distribution, and coordinate small teams of workers. Each task tested her patience, her knowledge, and her courage. Every time she hesitated, Cade's calm presence reminded her that mistakes were not failures, they were lessons. One afternoon, while inspecting the livestock enclosures, Lyra noticed a young worker struggling to secure a magnetic tether on a floating sheep. The worker's hands shook, and the sheep drifted dangerously close to the edge of the module. Lyra's instincts kicked in, and she reached out, steadying both the worker and the tether. "Careful," she said softly, guiding the young human. "Trust the tether, trust yourself." The worker nodded, relief flooding their face. Cade appeared behind her, observing silently. Lyra felt a subtle pride, not in herself alone, but in the moment of shared success. Humans were remarkable because they lifted each other, even in fear. That night, Cade invited Lyra to join him in the central command module. A simulation of the ranch's defenses flickered across the holographic display. "We prepare for the unexpected," he explained. "Asteroid storms, rogue drones, energy surges, there's always a test. Humans are most remarkable when they rise to the challenge." Lyra watched the simulations carefully, noticing patterns, predicting outcomes, and suggesting small adjustments. Cade listened, nodded, and implemented her ideas. "See," he said quietly. "You're already thinking like one of us. Humans adapt quickly, and you've proven it today." Lyra felt a rush of confidence. She had feared this new life, feared being trapped in a marriage she didn't want, feared the unknown dangers of a floating ranch in space. But now, as she watched the simulations, she realized she was capable of more than she had ever imagined. Days turned into weeks. Lyra and Cade worked together seamlessly, solving problems, preventing accidents, and managing the ranch's complex systems. Each success built trust, not only between Lyra and Cade but among the humans of the ranch. They were a team, bound not by obligation but by respect and shared challenges. One evening, a message arrived from the outer colonies. A severe meteor storm was predicted to pass near the ranch, threatening not only the livestock but the entire orbital infrastructure. Cade called a meeting, and Lyra found herself at the center of strategy discussions, her expertise crucial for survival. "We'll need to secure the livestock pods and reinforce energy shields," Cade said, his tone calm but urgent. "Lyra, I want you coordinating the drone deployment. Can you handle that?" Lyra hesitated, feeling the familiar surge of fear. But she had faced crises before and she trusted Cade's calm guidance. "Yes," she said firmly, "I'll make sure everything is secure." As the storm approached, the ranch came alive with activity. Drones zipped through the corridors, energy shields hummed to life, and humans moved with precision and coordination. Lyra guided the operations, her hands steady despite the chaos. Sparks flew, alarms blared, but she felt a strange exhilaration, the kind that came from overcoming fear and taking control. Cade moved alongside her, silent and observant, ready to intervene only if necessary. "You're doing well," he said softly. "Humans thrive under pressure. You're proving that every day." Lyra's chest swelled with pride. She realized that courage was not the absence of fear, it was the willingness to act despite it. Humans had survived for centuries in harsh environments, and now she was learning to survive alongside them, not as a victim, but as a capable, contributing member. The meteor storm hit with full force. The ranch shook, alarms blared, and energy shields flickered under pressure. Lyra's hands moved rapidly, coordinating drone movements, rerouting power and securing cargo. Sparks flew dangerously close, but Cade's calm presence kept her grounded. Together, they worked through the storm, a team united by trust and determination. Hours later, the storm passed. The ranch had survived with minimal damage and the livestock remained safe. Lyra floated in the central module, exhausted but exhilarated. She met Cade's eyes, and for the first time, she saw genuine pride in his expression. "You did it," he said simply. "We did it. Humans endure, humans thrive, and you are remarkable." Lyra smiled, a mixture of relief and newfound confidence flooding her chest. She realized that trust, courage, and patience were as powerful as any technology or strategy. Humans survived not just because of their skills, but because of their hearts, their ability to adapt, to protect, and to believe in each other. That night, as Lyra floated to her quarters, she reflected on everything she had experienced. Fear had guided her before, but now it was tempered by trust, understanding, and teamwork. Cade's words echoed in her mind, "I'll wait for your heart." And for the first time, Lyra understood that trust could grow slowly. Courage could bloom even in fear, and humans, above all, had a remarkable ability to rise above the impossible. The storm had tested them, pushed them to their limits, and proven what Lyra had already suspected. Humans were extraordinary. And in the vastness of space, amid danger and uncertainty, she could survive, thrive, and maybe even open her heart. The orbital ranch had quieted after the meteor storm. The alarms no longer blared, the drones moved in their regular rhythm, and the crew busied themselves with maintenance and routine checks. Yet, for Lyra, the calm brought a new kind of challenge, one that had nothing to do with machines, systems, or survival. It was the challenge of trust, of opening herself to someone she barely knew, someone she had feared at first but now could not ignore. Cade approached her that morning with a small, folded data pad. "Lyra," he said softly, "I've been analyzing the next crop rotation for the hydroponic fields. I thought you might want to review it with me." Lyra blinked, startled. He wasn't demanding her help. He was offering it, inviting her to contribute as an equal. She nodded, curiosity overcoming her hesitation. Sure, let's see it. They floated together into the hydroponics module. Soft artificial sunlight illuminated rows of glowing plants suspended in magnetic fields. The gentle hum of life support systems filled the background, creating a peaceful rhythm. "You've done this before?" Cade asked, glancing at her notes. "I've worked with smaller systems," Lyra admitted, "but nothing like this. It's complex." "Complex, yes," he agreed. "But humans excel at managing complexity. We adapt, we learn, we protect what we care for, just like the ranch." Lyra's heart skipped. The way he spoke made it sound like the ranch was alive, more than metal and circuits, a community, a home. And for the first time, she wondered if she could belong here, not as someone forced to stay, but as someone wanted. They worked side by side, floating between the hydroponic pods, making adjustments and discussing efficiency improvements. Cade listened to her suggestions with genuine interest, implementing them with care. There was no rush, no condescension, only patience and respect. "You see," he said after a while, observing the optimized system, "humans can take chaos and turn it into balance. You just need to trust your skills." Lyra smiled faintly. I'm learning." "And that's what matters," Cade said softly. "Humans grow by learning, by adapting, by trusting each other. And I'll wait while you grow." The words lingered in the air between them, a quiet promise that carried more weight than any physical protection or technology. Lyra felt a strange warmth in her chest, a feeling she hadn't allowed herself to experience in years. It was fragile, like a small flame in a vast dark room, yet it was real. Over the next few days, Lyra began noticing small gestures from Cade that she had previously overlooked. How he made time for the younger workers, ensuring they felt safe and respected. How he repaired damaged drones with patience, explaining each step to the apprentices. How he never raised his voice, even when situations became tense. One afternoon, Lyra was floating among the livestock enclosures when a small accident occurred. A magnetic tether on one of the floating goats slipped, sending it spinning dangerously close to the edge of the module. Lyra acted immediately, grabbing the tether and steadying the goat. "You've got a good instinct," Cade said, appearing silently beside her. "Humans rely on their instincts as much as their knowledge. We survive because we trust ourselves, and sometimes each other." Lyra felt her cheeks flush. He didn't just compliment her skills, he recognized her instincts, her judgment, her worth. It was unsettling in a way she hadn't anticipated. That evening, Cade invited her to the observation deck. The stars stretched infinitely, glimmering against the black void of space. The ranch lights reflected softly on the observation windows, casting a warm glow inside. "Do you ever wonder," Lyra asked quietly, "why humans can endure so much yet still care so deeply?" Cade's eyes met hers. "Because we must," he said simply. "Survival is not enough. Humans thrive when we protect each other, when we care, when we find meaning in the chaos. That's our strength. That's why I value you, not because you survived, but because you are willing to trust, to contribute, to grow." Lyra's heart ached with the weight of his words. She wanted to speak, to explain the fears she had carried for years, but the words stuck in her throat. Instead, she floated silently, absorbing the sincerity in his gaze, the calm patience in his presence. The days turned into weeks, and their bond deepened, not through grand gestures, but through small, consistent moments. Shared meals in the habitat dome, quiet conversations while repairing drones, and long hours observing the stars became a rhythm that brought Lyra unexpected comfort. She began to anticipate Cade's quiet presence, the way he made even mundane tasks feel significant, the way he treated her as an equal rather than property. One morning, while inspecting energy grids, a minor malfunction occurred. Sparks flew from a panel and the module shook slightly. Lyra's training kicked in immediately. She reached for the controls, but Cade was there, steadying her hand. "Trust yourself," he said softly. "You know what to do." Lyra adjusted the circuits, rerouted power, and stabilized the system. She exhaled, her hands trembling slightly. Cade's calm presence had allowed her to focus, to act without panic. "You're remarkable," he said simply, floating beside her. "Humans thrive because we trust each other. You're learning to do the same." Lyra felt her chest tighten. She wanted to argue, to say she had done it alone, but the truth was undeniable. She had not succeeded without him, and that realization was both frightening and comforting. Later, she found herself in the hydroponic module, tending to the plants alone. The soft hum of the lights and water systems filled the room. She thought about her life before the ranch, the fear that had dominated her every decision, the loneliness that had shaped her existence. And then she thought about Cade, his patience, his respect, his unwavering belief in her potential. A small, fragile warmth spread in her chest. Could she allow herself to care for someone again? Could she trust him fully without fear? The question lingered, unspoken. Lyra knew she wasn't ready to answer yet, but for the first time she didn't feel trapped by it. The ranch, the crew, Cade, they were teaching her a new way to live. A way where fear didn't dictate her choices, where trust could grow slowly, and where her heart might one day open without hesitation. That night, Lyra floated to the observation deck, gazing at the stars. The universe seemed both vast and intimate, infinite and personal. She realized that humans were extraordinary, not just because of their survival skills, their ingenuity, or their strength, but because of their hearts. Their ability to endure, to care, to hope, and to trust made them resilient in ways no technology could replicate. Cade joined her silently, his presence comforting without words. They watched the stars together, a quiet understanding passing between them. Lyra felt her fear diminish, replaced by a fragile, growing hope. "You're changing," Cade said softly. "Not just here, but in yourself." Humans grow when they trust, when they face challenges, and when they allow themselves to feel. Lyra nodded, tears threatening to spill. I want to trust," she whispered. "I want to try." "Then take your time," he said, his hand brushing hers gently. "I'll wait, always." For the first time in years, Lyra felt safe. Not because the universe was free of danger, but because she had found someone who understood the human heart, who respected her, and who would not rush her. She realized that survival alone was no longer enough. She wanted connection, understanding, and perhaps even love. And as they floated together among the stars, Lyra understood that the heart, like the universe, could expand. It could endure storms, survive fear, and slowly, patiently, learn to trust. The ranch was alive with humans thriving, adapting, and protecting each other. And now, Lyra was part of it, not as a victim, not as a commodity, but as someone capable, valued, and slowly, opening to the possibility of a future she had never dared imagine. For the first time, she allowed herself to hope that her heart, which had been caged by fear for so long, might one day be free. And Cade whispered in her thoughts, as always, "I'll wait for your heart." This time, Lyra believed he would. The calm of the orbital ranch was deceptive. Weeks of peaceful routine had lulled everyone into a sense of security. Lyra floated in the central command module, reviewing energy logs and maintenance reports, when the alarm blared, a sharp, insistent signal that cut through the hum of the station like a knife. Cade appeared immediately at her side. "What is it?" Lyra asked, her voice tight with tension. "Outer colonies report a hostile faction is approaching," Cade said, his expression serious but controlled. "They want to seize our resources, livestock, energy grids, everything we've built. We don't know how many ships, but they are aggressive. We must prepare." Lyra's stomach tightened. The orbital ranch had been her sanctuary, a place where humans thrived and adapted, and now that sanctuary was threatened. Fear rose in her chest, but beneath it was a deeper understanding. She had learned to act under pressure. She had learned the strength of trust, of patience, of courage. Cade floated to the central holographic display. "We have limited time. I want everyone coordinated. Lyra, you'll manage drone deployment. You know the systems better than anyone here." Lyra hesitated for a moment, remembering the fear she had once carried, the terror of being sold, the feeling of helplessness. But that girl was no longer here. She took a deep breath, steadied her hands, and nodded. "I'm ready," she said firmly. Cade's expression softened briefly. "I knew you would be." The crew moved with precision. Drones zipped through the corridors, energy shields hummed to life, and the livestock pods were secured. Lyra coordinated movements, rerouted power, and communicated with teams in every module. Each decision mattered. Each command could mean the difference between survival and disaster. The hostile ships appeared in orbit. Sleek, angular vessels glimmered in the starfield, weapons glinting under their hulls. Lyra felt a surge of adrenaline, but she focused on the task at hand. Humans had survived worse: meteor storms, rogue drones, and zero-gravity accidents. This was just another challenge, another test of endurance. Cade hovered beside her, calm and steady. "Trust yourself," he said. "Trust the humans around you. You are not alone." Lyra's fingers flew across the controls, issuing commands and recalibrating the energy shields. Sparks flew as minor malfunctions occurred, but she corrected them quickly. The ranch trembled as the first shots hit the shields, but the defenses held. Hours passed in a tense blur. Lyra floated from module to module, checking energy flows, redirecting drones, and guiding workers. Cade moved silently beside her, intercepting failures before they became disasters. Together, they were a unit, a team bound not just by necessity, but by trust and shared courage. The hostile faction launched a boarding pod. Lyra's pulse quickened as alarms screamed. She guided the drones to intercept, her mind racing through strategies and contingencies. Sparks erupted as one drone collided with the pod, pushing it away from the habitat module. "Good," Cade said calmly. "Keep pressure on them. Humans thrive when we act together." Lyra realized how true his words were. Alone, any of them would have been overwhelmed. But humans were not meant to fight alone. They adapted, they supported, they endured together. And now, that endurance was their greatest weapon. The battle raged for hours. Lyra directed drones with precision, repaired minor system failures, and coordinated with field workers who defended the ranch with whatever tools they had. Cade moved fluidly, assisting where needed but never undermining her authority. Every command, every choice, every act of courage strengthened the bond between them. Finally, the hostile ships began to retreat, their numbers thinned and their attacks failing. The ranch trembled from the last impact, but it had survived. The crew cheered, exhausted but triumphant. Lyra sank into a harness, her body shaking with adrenaline and relief. Cade floated beside her, his calm presence grounding her. "You did it," he said quietly. "We did it. Humans endure, humans thrive, and you are extraordinary." Lyra felt a warmth in her chest, a mix of pride, relief, and something more, something she had never allowed herself to feel fully: hope. She had faced fear, danger, and uncertainty. She had relied on others, trusted her skills, and acted with courage. And she had survived. The battle was over, but the emotional aftermath lingered. Lyra realized she had come far, not just in skill, but in trust and heart. She had begun to see Cade not as the man she had feared, but as someone who respected her, believed in her, and allowed her to grow. Later that night, in the quiet of the observation deck, Lyra floated beside Cade. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the dome, silent witnesses to their triumph. She felt the weight of the moment, the significance of her journey from fear to trust. "Cade," she said softly, her voice trembling slightly, I think I understand now. Humans endure, yes, but we also thrive because of trust, courage, and heart." Cade smiled, a rare, gentle smile that made her chest ache. "Exactly. Humans survive in every way possible, not just by skill or strength, but by believing in each other. And your heart, you found it. You just needed time. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. She thought of the girl she had been, the girl sold into a marriage she feared, alone and terrified. That girl had survived. But now the woman she had become was stronger, braver, and capable of more than she had ever imagined. I trust you, she whispered, and I think I've allowed myself to care. Cade reached out, gently brushing her hand. I've always waited, he said softly. Not for your compliance, not for fear, but for your heart. And now, Lyra smiled through tears. Now it's mine to give freely, she finished. The stars outside seemed to shimmer brighter, reflecting the warmth between them. The ranch, once a place of survival and work, had become a home, a testament to human ingenuity, resilience, and heart. Lyra understood that the universe could be harsh, unpredictable, and unforgiving. But humans with patience, trust, and courage could rise above any challenge. In the days that followed, life returned to its routine rhythm. Drones hummed, crops grew, and livestock floated gracefully in zero gravity. But for Lyra, everything had changed. She no longer felt like a commodity, a survivor bound by fear. She felt like a partner, an equal, someone capable of thriving in both skill and heart. Cade gave her space to continue growing, never rushing, never demanding. They worked side by side, laughed quietly over small victories, and shared moments of silence filled with unspoken understanding. Each interaction deepened their bond, reinforcing the human capacity for patience, trust, and love. One evening, Lyra floated to the observation deck alone, reflecting on her journey. From the auction platform to the ranch, from fear to courage, from isolation to trust, she had learned the true essence of humanity. It was not just survival, it was adaptability, ingenuity, and heart. Humans could endure storms, crises, and uncertainty, but they thrived when they trusted and cared for each other. Cade appeared silently beside her, as he often did. They watched the stars together, a quiet peace settling over them. You've grown, he said softly. You've survived, adapted, and now you've chosen to trust. That is human strength. Lyra smiled, leaning slightly against him. And you've taught me patience, courage, and hope. I've only shown you the way, Cade said quietly. The rest, that was always within you. For the first time, Lyra felt fully at home, not just in the ranch, not just among humans, but in herself. She had faced fear, danger, and uncertainty. She had learned to trust, to contribute, and to open her heart. And she had survived, not only the universe but the fear that had once imprisoned her. As they floated among the stars, the silent promise remained. I'll wait for your heart. And now, Lyra knew that she could give it freely, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. Humans endured. Humans thrived. And Lyra, once sold into a marriage she feared, had discovered something even more extraordinary: the power of choice, trust, and love in a universe that demanded both courage and heart. The stars stretched endlessly above them, but for Lyra, the universe no longer felt cold or threatening. It felt full of possibility, warmth, and the remarkable resilience of the human spirit. And Cade, her cowboy groom, whispered once more, softly, gently, "Now your heart is mine." Lyra smiled, not with fear, but with freedom, hope, and the certainty that she was finally, truly alive.